So remember, co-parenting and working on co-parenting isn't about working on liking each other more. It's working on how to stabilize your children so they feel safe when you're both raising them. So there isn't that emotional split about one person's right and one person's wrong, or they can't love both of you in the same breath. Hi, I'm Susan Regan, and I'm introducing to you a very short talk on some of the topics that I feel are most important to understand when you're going through a separation and deciding not to parent children within your couple relationship, but to really focus on your parenting relationship as the united front that you both hold with the child. Many times I see parents trying to do what they think is in the best interest of the child. And I agree with that. That is a really good place to come to. What is the best interest of the child? But the problem is, if you have different parenting styles and you have conflict and tension, most likely your definition of what's in the best interest of the child is very, very different. So, with a child development background, I really like to look at what some of the developmental needs of each child at their stage of growth, and how might the best interest of the child be helping them feel safe and also helping them feel like they still get to be a kid, no matter what is changing in their family. So, the family structure is changing. The family still exists in a different structure. And the more that the parents can work on how they're going to change their relationship outside of how they're going to parent that child in front of the child is key. And that was a really important thing that I just said. The relationship between the parents has to change because the couple relationship is shifting out, and the investment that the parents make raising that child remains the same. One of the hidden gems of actually a separation is that the tension and the conflict is lifted outside of the relationship of the parent to the child, and that parent really gets to have an opportunity to strengthen their relationship with their child. A lot of times there's one parent that's technically more connected or attached to the child. And that oftentimes is whoever was the breastfeeding mom, whoever was the person that really maybe even had a similar temperament as the child. And so they could really soothe the child quickly. The other parent becomes the parent that has to bond with the child through what we call frustration tolerance. And that means their needs aren't met as quickly, but the parent trying to meet their child's needs and dealing with the disappointment that might not be doing it the same as the other parent is what builds the bond. They just keep hanging in there and dealing with, I'm here and I'm going to keep trying to connect with you and soothe you and take care of you so that you feel safe and comforted and taken care of and all the basic needs way. But it might not be the same, but over time, you'll get to accept that I am really doing it out of love and concern. And most parents are really trying to do the very best they can to meet the needs of their child. Sometimes, of course, there's mental illness and addiction issues that get in the way. And if that is a part of your co-parenting relationship, you need to really look at that and get some outside help, professional help to deal with that. If it's at the range that you're like, these things that I'm talking about right now really don't apply to your connection because it is not functioning at this level to even apply these things. So, going back to one of the main things to think about is we're really trying to establish safety and consistency for your child during this time of change so that this change that's happening in the family is a transition, it's not a trauma. And a transition, in my earlier video, you might have heard me say that everyone gets used to a transition, right? And everyone gets better at a transition and addresses the things that they didn't think were a part of a transition over time. And so that since kids get their reality translated to them by the adults in their life, that the family and the parents can continually repeat that statement, which is, we are all getting used to this and we're all going to get better at this. And at first, we're going to work out the kinks that come up, which we don't know about. So, when I am working with co parents, the very best situations I get into when people come to me is that they're coming to me pre the thought of separating, that they're actually creating a plan, thinking about how their child's going to respond, thinking about all the ins and outs of where's the other location that the other parent might be living, what's the timeline, what's the best timeline for the child so that they're set up to feel safe. So, for example, it's done with some time that the family can be on a holiday, perhaps, like there's time off of school and work, or it's a beginning of a weekend, or there's a setup that kids gradually over time have a transitional plan to start having a more of a scheduled structure around when they see both parents. So the 30 days, the first month, there's a transitional plan, and that all of these details are being talked about. Kids are being talked to. There's a timeline, community, and close friends and family are being talked about. And there's really this um, buffer of support coming in and understanding. And that's all been created even before this information is being shared with the child. So much planning behind the scenes to make this successful. So that is the best scenario that comes across my clinical practice is parents coming ahead of time and working through these things. And whatever might be different gets talked about with me. So if there's parent style differences, if the child can't sleep through the night with the other parent, if um, there needs to be some adjustment with drop offs and pickups and parents' work schedules, all of that is worked out ahead of time. And there's also items at each other's houses and how to actually take time for training, because typically both parents have different roles with the child, and some parents are better at one part of it or do one part of the parenting and the other parent does the other part. So sometimes it takes a while to come up to speed, which is completely natural. So if parents are not coming in at that time, it's just good to come in whenever you can if you feel like things aren't going well. But we have sometimes some repair to do. So sometimes the separation happened quickly and it wasn't so smooth, and kids got really displaced and felt really insecure. And in those cases, we might come back and create a better plan and sort of restructure what was done that created insecurity. And usually, insecurity is perceived and very obvious because the child might not be doing well. And so, typically, when there is a change, there is sometimes a regression of a few months of the child's development, and it might go back to a comfort zone. But then, if everything is being secured at that point, then moving forward can happen pretty easily. So don't be afraid about the regression. Regression is just a part of life. We all regress at times. Like, for instance, let's say we get a new job. We might spend a ton of energy on that new job and have to sleep a lot more, and we can't exercise and we can't do all our extra things that we used to do. But then we get used to the new job and the amount of energy we're putting out gets normalized, and then we're back to being on track with ourselves and in our routine. It's very, very similar for a child. And depending on the age of the child, depending on how big that transition and that regression will express itself. So not to be afraid of it, but use it as information and shifting and trying to figure out how to help that child through this. So I want to take a minute here to restructure some of the other more important aspects of things to talk about when you're working with a transitional plan and a co-parenting plan at the beginning. So I like to think a lot with parents about what their kids need. And predictability, ways to communicate, not feeling like they're in the middle, having the things that they need, having structure that is pretty similar in both homes. So I always think about it is it the structure is similar, the style of how things are implemented because of each parent and each parenting style might be really different. So we're going for structure, security, and consistency in the very first part of a separation. And obviously, communication. I love to teach parents how to deal with each other's communication because sometimes that's going on behind the scenes and it can get pretty heated. And I notice that sometimes that heatedness, that intensity of communication shows up in the transitions of drop off and pickup, and children can pick up that tension. And it could be of being late or not having everything that the child needs, or this kind of acting out behavior that is really meant to hurt the other parent, but it's not meant to make the other child feel insecure. But oftentimes that's the result and the consequence of that. So I really like to look at that and challenge that as one of the topics. So parents are learning to be business partners, and the business is raising kids together. So I actually teach parents how to formalize their relationship. They're not getting the emotional support that they used to get from each other, but they might be getting practical support of like what is typically known as the right of first refusal. So if you're needing help with the child over a certain period of time, that you're calling on the other parent to do that because you too, both parents are the most invested people in the child's life. And that is one of the things to think about. But the emotional aspect of the relationship, what you share, the kinds of support you expect from the other parent needs to really be reworked in your head. And also, sometimes when I find people just are normally too personal with each other in session, I formalize it so that we are in a business relationship. And I often ask parents, so this is, you are in the business of parenting. So is this how you would treat a business partner? Is this what you would, what would you expect from a business partner in terms of how they treated you? Timing, being on time, keeping commitments, staying on schedule, those kinds of things. So that is a real big topic to explore, which will be explored more. How and what you expect when you're messaging each other back and forth. And again, that's formalizing the relationship. So it's information, whether it's text needed right away, information, please answer this. Can you take care of the child? They're sick today, or pick them up, or longer. Like, I need some time for you. I need to get this information in a week. Could you look at your schedule about the spring break, that kind of thing? So there needs to be real clear understandings about what you need, timelines that need to be kept, and how you're going to formalize the messaging back and forth so it doesn't create tension. Consistency across households. So that means consistency in routine and what your values are for your kids. So you might have values about the amount of social media they have, how much freedom they have, um, how you deal with play dates and them going to people's houses and getting to school on time, and all of those things that we're trying to teach our kids. When parents can't agree on that, I look at a different model, which is the parallel parenting model, where parents might do better having more distance and just focusing on the consistency and setting up and structuring their own household. And that this will be the only way that there can be less tension in each household. But I first really try to make it so that there's some guiding principles and guiding parameters around how parents are involved with each other and communicating about their kids' needs. And then there are the kids' needs on a whole. What is the personality of your child? And what kinds of things do they need to feel safe and secure? Each child might need very, very different things. Some kids are really adaptive to change, and other kids, they'll always have a hard time with transitions. They have a hard time going to bed. They have a hard time going on vacation and coming back home. So all of these things need to be looked at and how to tailor what your expectation is about your child and how you're going to help them deal with developing um, their personality and their coping skills throughout their childhood. We all have idiosyncrasies, and our kids do too. So, knowing our kids' idiosyncrasies, learning how to talk with and help our children deal with them and grow with them is really important. And in this situation, where you're actually challenging the structure of the household for a while, you're going to be seeing some of the idiosyncrasies of your children coming up and some of their strengths. And so, this is a big learning. And it's also a big collaboration of how you're going to start communicating some of those things back and forth. So if things are happening in your house, like the child is not eating, or they're not sleeping, or they're having a hard time with bathroom routines or routines in general, then these are things that need to be talked about. And if you can't have parenting meetings yourselves, you should have parenting meetings with someone else present, like a co-parenting therapist, or even a mediator who does more helping you with parent settlement agreements so you can write some of these theories down about what is in the best interest of raising your children. What are the values that you both share and philosophies? The one I want to emphasize is we're really trying to create resiliency in the idea of change and come together with this idea of peaceful parenting versus perfect parenting and trying to do your own healing when there's a structural change in your family. And this brings about hope, right? So, hope, your individual work will be hope for your next chapter of changing the vision that you had about how you were going to be raising your children to how you're going to be raising them now and honing in on how are you going to make this work. So, in the short term, just like a new job, it's taking on a different role in your family where you might be the single parent half the time or some of the time, and to really figure out how are you going to do that well? What kind of supports do you have to put in place? What kinds of skills do you have to learn that maybe you don't have? And how are you realistically going to do this so that the focus can be on your child having their childhood instead of them feeling like they're very, very aware of your stress and your tension with the other parent? So that's my goal for you, is to dive deeper into these topics in our 90-minute workshop. So if this seems like a place for you to push off of and to do more exploration, I would really encourage you to sign up. And remember that once you sign up, you get the recording. So you can always do this on your own, listen to it while you're in the car. Just get the information you need to start putting some of these pieces together. There will be sort of a general talking about children, not specific ages. I know sometimes people go through a time where they're raising their teenagers, and that's a whole different parenting style. I will be adding a link to a workshop I did around raising teens in a divorced family and see if that's something that would help you out, and other resources all along the way that might be helpful to you as well. So, looking forward to seeing you in my workshop. Please don't hesitate to DM me if you have any questions, or you would like me to answer certain things in the workshop, and I can keep those in mind and tailor some of my answers to your concerns.